You have been told that money is just a simple tool for trade. Your old school books claim it was invented to make shopping easier. So you wake up early every single morning, trading your time and energy for lifeless pieces of paper. You put them back in your wallet, believing they hold solid value. But that innocent story of fair exchange is a complete myth. True power does not actually reside inside those printed bills you hold. It comes from a much darker, perfect illusion you never knew existed. Picture the money you work for every day. Look closely at the paper sitting inside your wallet right now. It feels real. It feels like a solid reward for your exhausted hours, your late shifts, your daily grind. You trade your literal life energy for these printed rectangles, completely trusting the system behind them. But money is not what you think it is. For thousands of years, money was something you could actually hold. It was a physical truth. People traded heavy shells, shiny beads, and raw metal. You knew exactly what you were holding. If you had a gold coin, you held pure, undeniable value in the palm of your hand. No king or emperor could magically wish more gold into existence just because they wanted to fund a new war or build a larger palace. The physical world kept human greed in check. The rules were simple. The game was fair. But then the rules changed. Empires grew larger. Ambitions grew darker. The men in power realized a terrifying truth about human psychology. They realized that money is not just a physical object. Money is a network. It is an invisible web of collective belief. It was never actually invented to make shopping easier for the common man. It was invented to keep score. And the moment you can keep score, you can rig the game. The kings and politicians discovered the ultimate alchemy. They slowly replaced the heavy, honest metals with something much lighter, paper. A simple promise stamped with a royal seal. They told the public it was for their own convenience. But convenience is always the perfect disguise for control. This invisible network quietly drains the purchasing power of your hard work. It transfers wealth from the people who labor to the people who print. It is a slow, silent extraction. Every empire throughout history has faced this exact same temptation. They reach a point where they want more power than their resources allow. So, they change the scoreboard. They print more promises. And every single time, it ends in quiet devastation for the ordinary citizens left holding the bag. The rulers of the modern era understood this fatal flaw perfectly well, knowing that pure blind trust would not last forever. So how does a nation convince the entire world to believe in their paper? They have to chain it to something they cannot print. How do you make billions of people trust a simple piece of paper? You have to perform a very specific kind of political alchemy. You cannot just demand their faith. You have to anchor that paper to something heavy, something old, something the world already respects. You have to chain your paper money to a rock. In the year 1944, the modern world order was quietly drawn up behind closed doors. This was the establishment of the Bretton Woods system. A new global architecture was designed to stabilize a shattered planet, but it was also the ultimate mechanism to centralize control. Under this agreement, the United States dollar was crowned as the supreme global reserve currency. It was a brilliant, calculated masterstroke of financial engineering. The dollar was no longer just an ordinary national currency. It became the backbone of international trade, the lifeblood of the new global economy. But why did the rest of the world agree to this? Because the United States made a massive, unbreakable promise. They promised that every single paper dollar printed and circulated was directly tied to real physical gold. Picture the vast, heavily guarded underground vaults. Inside those dark rooms sat thousands of tons of cold, silent gold bars. The paper note in your wallet was simply a convenient receipt for that physical metal. The money supply was chained to a rock. If you held the paper, you effectively held the gold. The illusion was absolutely flawless. The global network of money was now dependent on the American printing press. The men at the top had successfully rigged the game on a planetary scale. They controlled the scoreboard for the entire human race. Billions of lives, countless businesses, and entire sovereign nations were suddenly tethered to this one system. For a while, the system worked perfectly. The empire expanded. The network grew stronger. The paper flowed across borders, building cities, funding industries, and projecting immense geopolitical power. People completely forgot that they were trading paper. They truly believed they were holding gold. They trusted the financial system. They deeply trusted the vault. But there is a fatal, inevitable flaw in this grand illusion. When you possess the ultimate, unchecked power to print the world's money, the temptation to print just a little bit more is entirely irresistible. You always need to fund endless foreign conflicts. You constantly need to expand your domestic political programs. You fiercely need to project absolute, unbroken authority. So you quietly print more paper receipts than you actually have gold stored in the vault. You slowly stretch the chain. You forcefully push the absolute limits of collective human belief. You silently drain the true purchasing value of the currency to constantly feed the growing, hungry machine. It is a slow, invisible, systematic extraction of global wealth. The pressure severely builds. The vaults cannot magically multiply. The gold remains sitting still. The paper multiplies endlessly, flooding the streets. The economic math rapidly begins to break. The absolute trust finally begins to fracture. The world suddenly starts asking dangerous questions. They look at the paper. They look at the shrinking vaults. The system violently shudders. Every single empire looks immortal. They project absolute strength. They project endless prosperity. They seem entirely untouchable until they run out of resources to maintain it. The pressure on the vault was simply too much to bear. The physical gold could not possibly match the endless flood of printed paper. Other sovereign nations started knocking on the door. They desperately wanted their precious metal back. They clearly saw the global math. They knew the American printing presses were running incredibly hot. The grand financial illusion was rapidly fracturing. A definitive choice had to be made by the government. The leaders could either surrender the massive geopolitical ambition of their empire, or they could fundamentally change the basic rules of the game completely. The men in power will always firmly choose to change the rules. The monumental shift happened on August 15, 1971. The President of the United States stepped directly in front of the television cameras. He boldly made a simple, calculated announcement that permanently altered the entire trajectory of human wealth. He officially ended the direct convertibility of the United States dollar to physical gold. The sacred, foundational promise of the global economy was instantly broken. The heavy, restrictive chain was decisively severed. The ultimate financial anchor was completely lifted from the system. They carefully called it a strictly temporary measure to stabilize the nation. But centralized power rarely gives back what it deliberately takes from the people. In a single brief public broadcast, the greatest and most complex financial system ever constructed was completely rewritten. The fundamental tie to physical reality was suddenly erased. The very next morning, millions of ordinary citizens woke up and went straight to work. They bought their daily groceries. They dutifully paid their monthly bills. The green paper bill looked exactly the same as it did the day before. It felt identically crisp and familiar in their tired hands. But its fundamental value had already been transferred to a completely different world. The value no longer came from a physical, tangible rock, resting safely in a heavily guarded underground vault. It came from absolutely nothing but enforced collective belief. The entire global money supply was now freely floating entirely on pure, unbacked faith. Different empire, different material, the exact same inevitable ending. The oldest, darkest pattern in human history had just successfully repeated itself on a truly unprecedented global scale. A brand new era of limitless printing had officially begun. The invisible theft was now fully legalized. The perfect historical illusion was finally complete. Now take a breath and look very closely inside your own wallet today. Those colorful paper notes do not represent any real physical treasure. They represent mandatory faith in a massive, deeply flawed political system. They represent a dynamic, shifting scoreboard that can be secretly manipulated by the very people who exclusively control the printing buttons. Every single day, you are quietly trading your real time, your real physical energy, and your real life for a purely abstract concept. The modern paper empire is currently held together entirely by your absolute blind trust. There is nothing backing it up except the collective fear of watching the entire system collapse. You are actively participating in the most spectacular magic trick ever performed. The chain was cut decades ago, yet we still desperately pretend that the heavy anchor remains firmly buried somewhere beneath the turbulent surface of the vast ocean. We are simply floating in the dark. For 10,000 years, the dark pattern has never changed. Money is not a simple tool for trade. It is the ultimate machine to determine power. But the era of the paper illusion is finally coming to an end. The next global empire will not be built on paper. It will be built entirely on invisible lines of code. A completely new digital network is being quietly constructed right now. The only question left is, who will be holding the controls? And will it be you? You are listening to a perspective from the quiet mindset, a quiet place to understand the loud rules of the world.